All right. So I'm back at it, just acting up a little bit on a Wednesday, the 13th, trying to continue on my progressionals for this nice obsession, hoping that this current setup is working out pretty good. And be working out a lot better if I quit losing shit that I'm using. Ha! So, as I said, we're just going to go ahead and continue on with some of the progress on Samuel. I haven't been able to really concentrate on him for a couple days. Just been busy with the huge as far as observances of life and such. You know, the human shit you get stuck in, like staying up way too late about and worrying about shit that you can't do nothing about. Sound about right? I know it does. It's the struggle. And we are all on that bus. Anyhow, any damn way. Hoping everybody, if anybody tunes in, is doing okay. I've stepped back from the paint for a minute because it was becoming a little less predictable than I would have liked. And so, what I'm actually doing now is, as best I can with this gel pen, which comes out very bright on this canvas, is making sure that the marks that I made are highly visible. And when I need to add some paint onto them, I'm gonna add it. Can you dig that? It may sound brainy right now, but I assure you it's the last goddamn thing I thought to do. This thing would have been off and running right away if I'd have done this in the first place. Because this is going to be, I think, a very reliable way to kind of solidify the spots where the halftone goes, where the lines are going to be located. And that way, when it comes time to lay in the paint, a little bit thicker, and honestly, I'm thinking that I'm going to have to get a better paintbrush or even another set of acrylic marker brushes, because that's really what I think would be the thing to set it off here, is going to be getting a new Posca brush or something like that. Because ultimately, with any art that you make, it's just like when I was drawing them pictures I've got up on the wall. Any pictures I've made, pretty much. It's not about perfection. It's about making it work. So if you get close to any piece of artwork, you're mostly going to see little imperfections. It's going to be things that your eyes were tricked into not seeing. And I think that's a good thing. Because that means that the artist is doing a good job. It's what in the Highlander they call the quickening, I guess. Probably fucking not, but, you know, coming to life in a matter of speaking. And if this looks sloppy to you, that's all right. That is all right. Because at this point, this is all progress going up. Because ultimately, if I just stay to the guides that I'm laying out for myself, this is going to wind up looking every bit as convincing as the halftone pictures that I originally rendered in Photoshop. The struggle is very real. I couldn't tell you how to get on that bus. Matter of fact, I think my chat is once again inoperable. So I'm going to do a quick check on that. But yes, the struggle is real. Not sure how we get off of that. But, long and short, ladies and gents, I think completely forgot what I was going to say. I had a thing of genius and I brain farted it. I completely brain farted it. So, I guess we'll just leave it there and come back to it later. But being a child of the struggle, I suppose it makes you stronger, better able to handle the everyday shite that exists right now. But yeah. We're getting to it. Oh man. I didn't expect my eyes to start getting tired this quickly. ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be. Let's talk about the struggles besides the art. Besides the things that will make old Jules here and Vincent come see you. So, I happen to suffer from a condition which many a teacher fraught over when I was growing up. It is a lifelong condition. It's one of those things that conspiracy theorists say does not exist. But I have that quite a pronounced case of ADHD. And so it manifests in a number of ways. If you have a kid that has it, you should be familiar with, certain markers like just kind of a lack of concept when it comes to time management. Inability to focus or to be hyper-focused on things that you probably shouldn't be hyper-focused on. And so what it can do is it can make you kind of caulk up the priorities. And so to illustrate how real the struggle is right now, I didn't get diagnosed until I was well into adulthood. I think I was 36. So it's been a few years. But night and day difference between now and then when I first got diagnosed. Because we tried, and this is one thing I was glad of, is because at the time I lived in Idaho, and we were just starting the Affordable Care Act. And so everybody was excited because people who had never had health insurance were getting it. And so I got health insurance, got my diagnosis, and the doctors went ahead and decided it was time to try perhaps some medication. And so it was kind of a home run with Adderall. And so I've been using it since, and we've adjusted the dosage over time to what works best. Unfortunately for Daddy, when COVID hit, we went through quite a pronounced shortage of it, because there's all sorts of stupid laws on the books that kind of hinder its production because it's a stimulant. I guess the federal government has it in its head that a few of us nefarious peeps that need the stimulants to make it through a day at the office to be able to actually think during a goddamn meeting, or whatever is appropriate to your job, You know, if you're a driver, it helps you focus. If you're a teacher, it helps you maintain your thoughts, not get overwhelmed in the classroom when you're supposed to be giving a lesson. So it's very practical and necessary because of the way our brains work. Those of us afflicted with this situational. But we've had a shortage. And probably sometime last year, the shortage kind of lightened up for me. Before that, I would go 2 or 3 weeks sometimes before a prescription could be refilled. One time, I know during COVID lockdowns, there was a straight up period of a few months before anybody really was able to get anything. You know, I had to be covert. Luckily, I have relatives in other towns where my pharmacy has branches, and I was traveling kind of at the time for family reasons, but I was able to get into some areas where luckily they had the drug available, and so I would pick it up kind of on the sly when I traveled. I had my doctor's office send the prescription orders up to these other places where I was going to happen to be, and that's kind of how I managed for about 6 months. And you know, eventually production kind of ramped up again. But now, out of the fucking blue, we have a goddamn severe shortage again. And I would like to know, Mr. President, if it's because of your fuckery. I have a strong suspicion that it is. Because if my memory serves, I was on all sorts of research high when I was trying to, you know, find out where the hell I could actually find a way to get a prescription filled. And if memory serves, one of the largest manufacturers of Adderall is out in the fucking Middle East. So, Mr. Making a good fucking deal, who's over in China right now humping legs and probably clogging their toilets. Yeah. Long and short, he can go fuck himself. So not only is my Adderall short, which in the list of things that are happening because of the current situation, the resulting state of where we're at, up to farmers losing their farms, having to foreclose, having to sell their farms, which who knows how long they've had them. As I understand it, a family farm is a family farm. Who knows how many generations they've had it. And guess what? That is going to be gone with the wind. And I don't think it's in this administration's interest to do things like save people's farms for them. Because I keep hearing about, we love the farmers, we're here to help the farmers, blah, blah, blah. Not really appreciating how much they fuck with people like farmers. Of course, that's all kind of where the rig falls. They don't want to help the farmers because ultimately this is going to benefit them and their buddies, their Epstein class, some kind of way. Considering even the vice president has very large investments in a consolidated group, a fund, if you will, that functions, that makes its capital by buying farmland that's been auctioned off, lost to the bank, foreclosed on, or made a quick sale of. So I think they can miss me with that shit. And there are no plans to help with it. Oh, maybe I ought to talk shit more. I'm getting some pretty good straight line work out of that. Well, I shouldn't have said anything, because then I fucked up the line. Anyhow, who's with me on that? Now everybody's quiet. Everybody's going to fucking bed. So, we'll just leave that thought at that. But, as you can see, Mr. Jackson is coming along just fine. Okay, I got lines down here I need to work on, so I'm going to get a little bit of a hunker down. Work on that for a moment. Let's see if I can make this a little more secure while I get that done. Not bad, not bad, ladies and gents. Whoops. Well, and it matters a little bit less right here because some of these white lines are going to fatten up quite a bit before everything is said and done. These will just be kind of suggestions. But depending on how this comes out, and what am I saying, depending on how it comes out? Because regardless of how this one comes out, going to want to do probably a few more of these as I'm kind of in the learning phase of how to do this right now. And so really, the more I do this right now, and this initial testing of this, the more quickly I'm going to be able to set up and get these done in the future. I'm sure that there are some things I'm going to come across and purchase that will make it a lot easier, but in general, this is getting it done. Very much so. That is how empires are built. All right. He's gorgeous. Or at least getting to gorgeous. So yeah, I'll just strengthen some of these lines a little bit more. Ah, you son of a bitch. Fucker. Alright, well, that can be cleaned up easy later. Now that is kind of one of the good things about working in straight black and white is it's not like you gotta mix a shitload of color together to fix something up. Nope. Really, it's as simple as opening the bottle or the tube or whatever have you. And just making sure that the mistakes you're trying to fix when you lay into them with a brush are well covered. They're in there thick enough. That's a philosophy I lived by for many, many years. It's about being thick enough. I said that something completely poetic came across the TV. I'll keep it to myself. Yes, yes, that's what we'll do. Okay, I gotta join some of these because I'm just realizing that this blank is where a piece of tape was. And so when I was going over the lines on this, guess what that means? That means that the transfer was not transferring. All fixable. Yep, we're going to get there. So I think that's every last line that actually needs to be laid in. Now I just need to actually thicken them up. That's perfect. That is bloody awesome. Yeah. So while we're going about that, one of the subjects of the matter is we got mofos bitchin', and of course it's bitchin'. It's a bitchin' practice about invoking 25th Amendment. Now, I'm not sure how well that's going to go, considering, well, let's just face it. Here in the U.S., we've got a system that's being rigged before our very eyes, even though the popular sentiment is that these guys gotta fucking go. But then we've got bedwetters in the way, like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, who they need to go as well. They need to go as quickly as fucking Netanyahu needs to go. And so that talk is probably going to get me some punishment on Twitch, since I mentioned the Yahoo. And so I think that's how we'll refer to him from now on, is Yahoo. Because he's trying to be a fucking oil baron cowboy motherfucker. So, yep. And I'm going to hold a grudge for a while, considering that along with all the genocide and shit, gas prices that are unaffordable, a new and renewed shortage of something that I desperately need to conduct myself like a fucking adult in a workplace, and which many people across the country, and I'm sure the rest of the world, depend on as well. But let's see what these whiners are fucking talking about.
Projects. He wants a ballroom, he wants an arch, he wants statues and monuments to himself, and unfortunately, too many of the Republican members here want to just suck up to him and spend your money on his vanity projects instead of giving you health care.
So what do you make of him constantly calling for Barack Obama's imprisonment, like
vanity
3 presidencies
projects
later now?
I mean, he's a bitter, deranged old man who should focus less on Barack Obama and more.
I think I've had quite really fucking enough of people using that word. Deranged. It's deranged. It's lunacy. It's crazy. Yeah. He's a fucking asshole. He's lost his mind. He's on the eve of turning 80. And see, saying that somebody is turning 80, that's not like a death knell for, you know, thought or intellect. Like, to me, that's kind of like 80 is, that's the prime where somebody's life experience and all the learning, all the knowledge is fucking there now. They're a treasure, pretty much, to everyone else around them, because they have vast knowledge and life experience that you're not going to get anywhere else. They have perspective you're not going to get anywhere else. However, this is a billionaire who I doubt has ever smacked his finger with a hammer when he was building something. Because I know that most of us inevitably have come across that signature injury on the way up learning things. But when you mainline stimulants your whole life, and it seems like every other meal is probably McDonald's. I'll bet he's eating McDonald's in China right now. Like, I would say that the abuse is large enough that he's probably sent out Secret Service to get his fucking McDonald's. I'm surprised there's not a McDonald's in Mar-a-Lago. He may have thought that was going to be too classless, but that's pretty hard. That's a pretty low bar when you've got that much gold leaf on fucking everything. But yeah, that's a different type of 80 years old. Especially when you specialize in grape juice. Like Mr. Han. We're investing in corruption. Yeah, so that's fucking horrible. Let's hear Democrats keep whining about this.
People. He's doing it because he knows that he will not be remembered as being half the president that Barack Obama was, and it makes him upset.
And how big of a factor is his cognitive decline now that he's negotiating?
Or he may start to fall asleep during meetings and further shame us. Here, play this clip.
Ballroom a national emergency?
Trump's failure is a national emergency. I mean, the last thing we need to be doing is funding another vanity project when my constituents are paying almost $5 a gallon for gas in a war that he started that we shouldn't have started. So the only emergency is him in the White House.
What do you call it? What do you make of him calling for Obama's arrest 2 presidencies late, 3 presidencies late?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
I mean, he's completely unhinged. Yeah. It's clear that he's unhinged, particularly I think as he goes to China and knows he's going there with a weak hand. He's just grasping and flailing.
He's got the weak hand in China, people.
When is his cognitive decline?
It's a huge factor. I mean,
I am getting a little bit of paint as we speak,
with,
so I'm just going to be right back.
Now, and we can't be sure if he's not falling asleep in the middle of these meetings. We should all be very concerned. I'm certainly concerned, and my constituents are too, actually.
We then heard from Congressmember Smith, who leads the Armed Services Committee for the Democrats, ranking member there. He says this isn't strategic ambiguity by Donald Trump, it's incoherent ambiguity. Let's play this clip.
I described it as incoherent ambiguity. You know, we have strategic ambiguity. His is just all over the place. It's confrontational, it's inconsistent, it's erratic, and it doesn't seem to be based on reality. So what's causing that? I'm not going to offer up a diagnosis, but it is a significant problem.
And we heard from Congresswoman Dexter. She says that Donald Trump can't speak in sentences. Let's play this clip.
Quick, you think that the ballroom is a national emergency?
That is such a laughable assertion. No, it's of course not. What's a national emergency is the fact that the American people can't afford to live, let alone pay for gas, and certainly can't get to our national parks.
But how big of a factor is Donald Trump's cognitive decline now that he's in China?
That's cold-blooded.
In the United States.
You know, I don't trust that man to be able to cognitively make a complete sentence, let alone negotiate with China, who's so clearly 3 steps ahead of us right now. It's really, really concerning.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Powerful words here from Democrats. And we heard from Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Here's what she told us. Let's play this clip.
With expectations quickly declining for Donald Trump's trip to China, how big of a factor is
China?
Well, I mean, we've been seeing it for a really long time. It doesn't seem like he fully understands what he's talking about, doesn't have a good grasp of the reality that he's created a mess, not just in this country, but around the world.
He said that closing the Strait of Hormuz was a genius move. What are your constituents telling you?
Oh, they think it is not a genius move. You know, if you're just reading 70% of farmers saying that they cannot afford enough fertilizers. there is an economic impact, not just on the price of gas, but on everything else. My constituents are feeling it, Minnesotans are feeling it, and I know people across this country are feeling it as well.
Thank you, Congressman.
We then heard from Congressmember Ro Khanna. Here's what he told us. Let's play this clip.
Congressman, is Donald Trump's ballroom a national security concern?
You know what it is? It's a national security concern, but he's building it with foreign steel. You know, he attacked me on Fox News because I said that we had Chinese steel in our ports. But can you imagine this guy is building the White House with foreign steel? What happened to America first?
Right, and he's in China right now. How big of a factor is his cognitive
He's in
decline?
China,
Yeah.
and who does he take? Does he take the forgotten American? Does he take the American worker? No, he takes tech billionaires with him, and now he's throwing $1 trillion of Chinese money into America to set up factories where workers are going to be abused, to set up factories where they have tons of people working who are undocumented, where they're not playing fair. Give me a break. What happened to Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania?
Holy shit, there's a little bit of wind there.
Taking tech billionaires to make this deal with China.
Mr. O'Connor, do you worry about the president's mental well-being?
I mean, he's doing everything opposite of what he campaigned on. He said, I'm going to be for peace, and he's making wars in Iran,
Bro.
now threatening Cuba and Venezuela. He said he's going to be for forgotten Americans and then take the tough line on China. And now China's putting $1 trillion into America and to undermine our auto industry, our steel industry. So I worry about his hypocrisy. I worry about this is a president who's run the most dishonest campaign in American history. Thank you. Thank you.
Then we heard from some of the MAGA Republicans. We wanted to ask them the same types of questions. So MAGA Republican Congress member or Senator Marshall
Holy shit.
told us that Donald Trump gets an...
All right, so far none of them are really wrong or off, but goddamn, I'm just absolutely beyond sick of this point. At this point of just listening to the left wing with their fucking finger wagging. It's just all scolding. That's all it is. It's never gloves off. It's never gloves off. It's like listening to the angry nerd tell you you don't know how to play chess. Or, you know, like, obviously you don't know. Like, every time that one of them talks, I feel like some fucking nerd is saying, actually. It's like, thanks for throwing that interesting hook in there, brother.
A. Here's what Senator Marshall says.
We know
I give
you.
Donald Trump an A. An A, you're play
Go ahead and keep writing those strongly worded letters, fuckers.
this clip.
Certainly the price of gas is important to everybody, and hopefully as soon as this war gets over, we'll be back to where we were.
And if you were going to give him, like, if this was a report card and you were going to give him a grade on the war in Iran, what grade would you give President Trump?
You know, I'm going to have to give him an A. And like him, and we had this discussion on the phone last week. I wake up every morning, is my family safe? Is your family safe? What's the future hold? And I think he's always kept that in perspective, that regardless of all the other outside noise, he's kept in perspective what's most important is the safety of Americans. We've dealt with this issue for 47 years already with Iran. We cannot tolerate them ever having nukes again. Americans would never be safe again. If we gave Iran nukes, gasoline would be $20 a gallon. They would shut the strait on and off, and like North Korea taunting everybody, they would feel like they're untouchable if they had nuclear weapons. So A, for keeping us safe and having the guts to address a 47-year issue.
More from MAGA Republican Senator Marshall saying that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Everything he does is good. Let's play this clip.
Is there anything in this term that the president has done that you just disagree with?
Gosh, I'm sure there is. I'd have to sit there and think about it, and I just can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is.
Low-hanging fruit, the Greenland stuff, or even the Pope feud. Has he lost focus at all recently on when he was elected? I think primarily on the economy. Any of the Pope feud, Greenland, kind of.
Well, I think the Greenland would be very important to our national security.
Oh my God.
I think that would be a very good thing for America to purchase or work out an agreement with them.
Bro, unhinge your jaw a little fucking more.
And that's why we that no matter.
That's what we call the meat writing.
The comments that Donald Trump made. I don't know the context of Donald Trump saying that he doesn't care one bit about the American people's financial condition. Play this clip.
Ooh, I found an interesting video.
$4, so people are feeling the pain at the pump too.
So those comments specifically, though, do you think
I didn't see those comments specifically. I think I read a headline right before I came over here. But I mean, he's always said that nuclear arms, that Iran cannot have nuclear arms, and that's been his priority. The safety of the United States, our allies in the world, are a top priority for him, and that's been very important to him.
And then she says, well, just think about it. If Biden or Kamala were in office, it would be worse.
You know what else is important to him? Teenage girls. That apparently aren't important to us when they blow the whistle on somebody touching them. So just have that thought as I trim this to make sure that my lines are straight. It would help if I had any fucking scissors. I drove them all away. I drove away my scissors. Fuck. There's a war going on. There's a fuel crises. But you know what makes me really mad is I'm running out of Adderall and my paintbrush is beginning to fray and I have nothing to cut it with. So I guess I will just try my best to cope. I'll try to cope harder as the right-wing stalwarts tell me to do when I bring up things that are unpopular with them. Like the Epstein files. It's like, cope harder. Oh. I'm like, well, okay. Let's remember that cope harder when their friggin' magical cabal comes out later. They were stuffing girls in garbage sacks and burying them in the desert. It'll still be fake news then, even when they start to dig up the bodies. Ice pirates. Holy shit. Speaking about human trafficking, that may have been a super inappropriate transition, but you know what? Fuck you. Fuck you hard. It's ice pirates. But this is the other one that interested me. I am no longer in the mood to listen to Democrats and their finger wagging, especially when there is one in office currently who's showing them how to fucking do it. Let's give a clap for Zoran Mamdani for like actually getting shit done. Although, can't stop winning. Kyle Kulinski. I'm a little more tempted by this video that says Mexicans claim white as their race. Being a gentleman that will never be mistaken as a white fella, this holds some interest for me. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that.
How long were Mexicans identifying as white on paper?
Oh. I'm going to pause it while I get the scissors, because this guy, he's got Wayward Son on with him. Wayward Son on TikTok fucking schools people. So I am going to go ahead and get my scissors, because this is bugging the shit out of me. And when I'm back, we're going to absorb this. I'm just stepping away for a second. All right, I'm fucking back. So, yeah, I went ahead and took off my headphones, and I got to do some. I got to get my setup is ultimately it's all trial and error, but I know now. My man's got to get a wireless headset, because I really liked doing the setup where I had actual headphones, corded headphones, because the sound quality is so much better than like these things. But the mic, having a separate mic, doesn't work too well. If I was a podcaster, that would be fine, but I'm here doing shit, so I need a microphone right here. So I may have to invest, it's not even a question now. I'm going to have to invest in an actual headset that will allow for me to speak and move without the bullshit of cords being constantly in the way and yanking on other shit, knocking stuff down. That would be sweet relief. Which also eventually I'm going to have to invest in some better cameras and some longer cords. These are just, there's a laundry list of stuff. If I want to keep doing this in an easier, sustainable way that is going to allow me to more reliably and quickly set up in a much more organized fashion. You dig? I certainly hope so. But we are live. And I did say I was going to listen to this Mexicans claim white as their race. It's provocative, colloquially known as coconuts. Let's see what the deal is.
In the United States from 1848 to 1930. And then from 1930 to 1940, they were relabeled as Mexicans. And in 1940, the LULAC fought.
How long were Mexicans identifying as white on paper?
Here in the United States from 1848 to 1930. And then from 1930 to 1940, they were relabeled as Mexicans. And in 1940, the LULAC fought to get us reclassified as white. So then they reclassified us as white from 1940 to 1954. In 1954, we were reclassified again as a result of a case that came about at that time.
And that wasn't only Mexicans, that was Latinos in general.
Yeah,
And
because we
regardless-
were all considered that. There was a case, and you can look this up. It's called the Indigenous Mexican case. What it was is that you had a Mexican here, and what this dude did, he wanted to become a citizen of the United States. So he filed for citizenship. Do you know what they told him? That he couldn't be a citizen of the United States. Because the only people who could be citizens of the United States at that time were white people and African Americans as a result of the 14th Amendment, right? They said that he couldn't be citizen of the United States because he had too much indigenous blood. See, when you think about blood quantum, you automatically think about Native Americans. What people don't tell you, and a lot of people don't know, is they use blood quantum against our people. And what's so messed up is they used blood quantum at that time when they didn't have DNA testing to test that blood quantum. But here's what they did. As a result of that case, because they denied him citizenship because they said he was too indigenous, because at the time he said in court, in documents, in court, he said that he was between 55 and 75% indigenous, right? So they said, see, he's indigenous, he's not white. He's got Spanish blood, but you have to be over 50% Spanish blood, and then how can you be 45% Spanish and 55% indigenous and call yourself white? No. You had to be over that, over that mark. So since he identified as 55 to 75% indigenous, he couldn't become a citizen. He was too indigenous, right, to become a citizen of the United States. So here's what they did. They set that blood quantum, but Mexico filed a formal petition against it. They said, no, wait, you can't do that, because if you do that, then you're going to deny all of our people here the right to become citizens of the United States. So they filed a formal protest. The United States came back and said, you know what? They made them do a retrial, right? A retrial. So when they did the second trial of this Mexican indigenous case, they did a second trial. He came back and he says, you know what? I talked to my mom, and it turns out I'm only 20% indigenous. And they said, oh, okay. Well, then you know what? You can be a citizen. If you're 70% white and 20% indigenous, you can be considered white. You know what? You're white. You can be a citizen of the United States. They denied him originally citizenship because he was too indigenous.
So they said the math
that he only had 20%. So they said, okay, well, you're good enough to come in here. But they used that between.
I wonder what case that
was
is.
it 37 to 54? They used that against.
I wonder if there's some notes on where we can actually verify that shite. Well, I guess not. So I'm going to have to bug you, Ricardo Ignacio. Or I might have to bug Wayward Son. Like, what is this case you speak of, senores?
Us to deny Mexican citizenship based on their indigenous blood, but because they didn't have DNA testing at the time, it was lucrative. Oh, wait a minute, you're too dark, you have too many, and your features are too indigenous, so you have more indigenous blood than white blood, so you cannot become a citizen. They used blood quantum against us, but that's what they did. So it wasn't all Mexicans that became citizens or were classified as white. Some were classified as too indigenous, but the ones that were classified as too indigenous weren't let into the United States as citizens. That's crazy, right? They used blood quantum against us. And not only that, there was a different case. It was called R.E. Space Rodriguez, and his name was Ricardo. He tried to file for citizenship.
R.E. Space Rodriguez?
They did the same thing to him. They said, you are not white, you are not black. You cannot be a citizen of the United States. In that case, they said that you are not black, you are not white, you are copper colored. Mexicans were copper colored, and you can't be a citizen as a result of that.
Since when have we been Mexicans? Since 1821. Before 1821, what were we? And that is our identity. The Mexican identity is the systemic effort to erase our real identity. So if you really think about it, I am anti-Mexican because the Mexican label itself is the problem of indigenous people. It became a systemic effort and or an identity to attempt to erase and or further disconnect indigenous people from their original identities. I am anti-Mexican in that aspect. I am, of course. None of us indigenous people should want to embrace a colonial effort, especially that was created to further misplace us. kind of like the flag that you have there. You have that for a reason. The reason you have that is because that flag is being opened up, and it's trying to reveal what was there before that flag. Or I'll let you explain it.
You're exactly right. That's why I contain this flag, because they've always pushed this. They've always pushed this at the expense of that. And the way I explained it to people is this: I can still be Mexican, but I can still be, a sovereign pueblo and have my identity and have my culture. But they wanted you to do away with that. They wanted you to just push this aside and cover it up with that, because they were trying to, at that time, create a national identity. And in order for them to create a national identity, la raza cósmico, they needed people to let go of their indigenous heritage.
La raza cósmico.
To revolve around this, so that they can uplift that and become a nation united as one. But that means, just like the United States talks about melting pot, they require everybody to melt except them. You have to accept them. You have to be them. Here we have to be Spaniards. In Mexico, we have to be Spaniards. We have to speak the Spanish language, practice the Spanish religion. But that's part of colonization. That's what it was. That's what they pushed. But now, even today, you still have people pushing that identity. But at the same time, when you see that, when they're pushing that identity, you started to see a little bit more of a pushback. I mean, people are starting to gravitate to, identify with, and uplift that indigenous culture. And it rubs some people the wrong way, because that's what it means to claim Mexican instead of indigenous. It means to put aside this and gravitate towards that.
A lot of Mexican people, and even people that are not Mexican, people that were born in the U.S., that have Mexican parents or grandparents, they are able to comprehend when the white man says, yeah, I'm a real American. We have the ability to comprehend what that means, and we could see the white supremacy behind that chant.
The
But
coded
a lot
white
of
supremacy.
These same people are not able to see the fact that in Mexico, that same chant of "Sí, Viva Mexico" is the same chant coming from the same place of white supremacy, just like what you said right now, la raza cósmica. What is la raza cósmica? And what is raza? When Mexicans say it, what fits the criteria of raza? You and I both know that indigenous people, the Zapoteco doesn't fit la raza. We know that Mixteco doesn't fit la raza. So what is la raza? When they talk about la raza, who are they talking about?
They're talking about your Hispanic side, your Latino side, your Spanish side. They're connecting you with the colonizer. They're identifying you by the colonizer. And see, this is what I tell people, because look, there was different ones. There was Spaniards, there was Portuguese, there was French. But what was the common denominator? It's Spanish with indigenous, Portuguese with indigenous, French with indigenous. So what's the common denominator? It isn't French, it isn't Spanish, it isn't Portuguese. What's the common denominator? Indigenous. It's Spanish and indigenous, Portuguese and indigenous, French and indigenous. The common denominator is indigenous. So why do you describe yourself or allow them to identify you by a colonizer side? Why? They identify you by this because they want to disassociate you, disconnect you from the indigenous pueblos, from your indigenous people, because they know, just like the United States is trying to disconnect the Native Americans here from their indigenous roots, they know if they can disconnect you from your indigenous roots, then you no longer identify or connect with them roots and with that pueblo. So when they come to do something to that pueblo, when they come to steal the land, when they come to steal the resources, when they come to steal the water, you're no longer going to stand in defense of that pueblo, because you identify as Mexican. You identify no longer with the pueblo, but with the country. And they've done this, they've separated you from that pueblo. They've dropped those numbers. So when they come to do that, you're not going to stand there for your people. They know what they're doing.
People like me, that look like me, that come from where we come from in Mexico, we've never waved that flag in our lives. We've never chanted Viva Mexico in our entire lives. And I've never heard anybody that looks like me from a pueblo or an ejido, I'm from an ejido, use the term raza to identify ourselves. Because we've never belonged to that term. We never belonged in the chant of Viva Mexico. We've never felt like That flag represents us. How can it represent us if we run away from it? It seems like the only people that stay in that country are the white people of Mexico. It's not a coincidence. It's not by accident. It's an effort.
Okay, did we hear that? The white people of Mexico. White people of Mexico. This is part and parcel to the decolonization movement, is recognizing that, yeah, Mexico is heavily influenced culturally, almost by force now, still, with almost exclusively European customs and practices. Now, that's always been enforced with violence. Not just there, here too. That's always been the way. You know, stealing the kids and sending them to a boarding school. That's the kind of thing that also happened there. The blatant erasure of identities that were never in question before that. And well, maybe I should let them talk more, because I get distracted by painting. That's not a bad thing. That's my favorite, so to speak. But yeah. Yeah. That is a colonial practice. And I come across a lot of people during the daytime when I'm enrolling them on insurance. And we have to do something called language line. What it is when there are not enough translators for a certain language, then we have to get outside translators on the phone line with us. And it was kind of eye-opening early on when I noticed that there were a lot of people calling the Spanish line, and I'd have to get a Spanish translator on with us. And I'd have to speak with the translator kind of in a sidebar manner. Like, hey, is this person, are they actually understanding what we're saying? Because it doesn't seem like it. It seems like some of the message is not going through. And lo and behold, Spanish was not their first language. They had Mayan dialects, specifically one called Mam, was the most common that we would come through. And Mam is a language from down in the Yucatan. And yeah, the people who speak it are direct descendants of the Maya. And a matter of fact, I asked one of them if they would speak it over the phone, just a couple of phrases, beautiful sounding. You know, there is just something very arresting about hearing it spoken. Because let's face it, how often do you get to hear a language spoken that, and really unvarnished, unchanged, you know, kind of untouched, for lack of a better word, that doesn't have any roots in German or English, no roots in Latin, no roots in any of the Slavic languages, no roots in Arabic. It's 100% from here. And I know that there are languages in the Northwest that some of the tribes are trying to resurrect. And I think that's very important, because when I remember there was this distinct feeling when I was talking to this one lady in particular, and I did ask her to speak it for me. That it was like she was almost embarrassed to speak it. You know, she apologized at one point for the poor quality of her Spanish. And, you know, me and the interpreter were both, you know, let her know nothing to apologize for. But that's, you know, just very interesting is I wonder how often she has to apologize for, in effect, knowing her own language better than a language that was thrust upon them. Because at one point, that was me. That was what also happened to my family. We just don't have as strong a connection to who we were as this person clearly does. And definitely had some feelings about that. But I think anybody here who is of Mexican descent, of Mesoamerican extraction, as it were, if you have the opportunity to hear anyone speak any of the languages, do it. Because it's a weird type of fulfilling to not just know that it's still spoken. Because I think that people, there's a Eurocentric colonization of our thoughts that may not allow us to initially appreciate the diversity that there was and still is in Anahuac and all of the people from there, including ourselves. And so it's essentially kind of like when people are discussing world issues. And for some reason, there's always this presumption of Africa being a country. Africa is not a country. It's a fucking continent with many countries, many cultures, many living, breathing, functioning tribes. Which is why it always got me in the mood to slug somebody whenever in debates that would often come up round the campfire, so to speak. And I know that anybody who's been on the internet for longer than a week has heard the, well, blacks sold themselves into slavery too. It's like, bitch. Okay, so point taken. I guess you win, since you don't know how many fucking thousands of tribes of independent nations within different countries in the continent of Africa actually exist in a landmass that easily eats up the entirety of the United States and Europe. Easily. They can't imagine something that vast. It's like they would have to see it from space in order to get a scale. And then that might, actually seeing that just might shock somebody into fucking silence. That might break the brain, actually. So, yeah, we've got a little bit of that thought blindness too when it comes to ourselves as a colonized people. And I gotta have some soft touches on these ones. But you know, there weren't just the Aztecs, the Mexica. They weren't the only game in town. Descendants of the Mexica are still alive. Nahuatl is still a spoken language. But there was a triple alliance, which the descendants of the Triple Alliance still exist and still speak their languages. Zapotec still exists. Yaqui still exist. So many tribes still exist and still have their living language. And I think there's something kind of nourishing to hear any of those languages spoken out loud. Because it lets you know that you may have a hole in your heart that you didn't know was there. Let's see. All right, so this is coming along just bangers, lads and ladies, just banger. So I'm going to do a few more lines and then I'm probably going to close up shop for the night. Because it is always a big day that I'm suiting up for the next day. And being the stubborn bastard I am, I'm going to try to go to sleep. But I'm also going to fight going to sleep like a fucking 5-year-old. And that as well is one of the hallmarks of my condition. Being like, time to sleep, boys. No! But let's, before we go, have a little bit of more of that open speech here from the boys, because I went on a philosophical rant. So let's go ahead and get to it.
As to why this is a reality of why indigenous presenting people are always the ones fleeing the country and the white people are always happily there. So it makes much more sense why it's the white presenting people of Mexico, the ones proud of being Mexicans, waving the flag, Viva la raza, Viva Mexico. And it makes complete sense because, I mean, systemically, the mainstream Mexican is a white Mexican. The entire systemic effort regarding the macro media in Mexico or Latin America in general is always a white presenting person being pushed. And that is very telling as to what they want to be the representation of Mexico. So it also makes sense if you do the math as to why it's a systemic effort to keep indigenous presenting people or indigenous people from pueblos poor so that they could leave.
See, I see that more and more now, exactly what you're saying, because I tell people to go, look up the Mexican government and hit images and tell me how many indigenous people from the Pueblo are in the Mexican government. How many indigenous people from the Pueblo are in cine or, on television there, are in the news? How many people are being represented there? At the same time Claudia Sheinbaum was running for president, there was also an indigenous Nahua woman running for president too, right? But she wasn't voted in. Claudia Sheinbaum was voted in. Claudia Sheinbaum is, Jewish and other things. AMLO was 85% Spaniard. His grandparents, both his maternal and paternal grandmother, were born in Spain. They immigrated from Spain, but you don't have that representation. So because when we always say casta system, it's the same thing as here in the United States. It was a white supremacy system. That's what it was. There was whites on top, 100% pure blood Spanish from Spain, and everybody else fell underneath. It was just like the United States system. It was the exact same thing. So those people down here on the bottom, which were the indigenous people and African slaves, that were down here on the talking about the bottom. Because they had Zambos, mulattoes, they had all these other people, mestizos, all these other people, but down here on the bottom were those, and they're still there to this day. So yeah, of course, people that are oppressed are going to seek something to, to alleviate that oppression. Just like the white man talks about us, some of us sometimes look at them and talk the exact same way. And so, but we think we're better. We think that we're better than them in the same way the white man thinks he's better than us. But we don't see that distinction because we point to the white man and curse him for the position we're in. And then those that are coming, across that don't look like us or come from Mexico, we point to them the same way the white man points to us. And it's just, it's a messed up thing. I've fallen for it because I was born and raised here. I was that Chicano, screaming Viva la Raza before I had any understanding of the Raza Cosmico and all that other stuff. Before I, gained that knowledge, I was that dude. They used to call them chuntaros, the same way they called me Pocho. I was that dude. And I don't shy away from that because I had been led so far down that road of, that mestizaje, that Hispanidad, that road of ignorance, that I was that person because I was whitewashed to that degree. So now that, I understand it better, I'm like, I'm not that person. Once I understood where the term raza came from, once I understood that, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why is every definition that they have for us fall on the colonized side? Why is it always on that side, on the white side? The Hispanidad, the mestizaje, the raza cosmico. Why is it always over here? What about over here? Why don't we even look in that direction? But see, what's so messed up here is because we, as people here they call us wetbacks. Over there, they call us pochos. Native Americans say we're not indigenous because we don't have this connection to that. So we're not white enough for them. We're not brown enough for them. We're not indigenous enough for these others. What's so messed up is that in today's society, it's easier for a man to identify as a woman than for me or you to identify as indigenous. And that's a hell of a thing, but it's, okay, you know what, that's what it is. But they come for our people from every direction because that's what they push. That's what they want. That's what they've always wanted. They want to erase this side. Name me just one single right that the white man has given a person of color that we did not have to fight them for. I don't mean that they granted to us and said, well, you know what, hey, we're gonna go ahead and give, no. I mean, we had to fight them for everything. And they fought us every step of the way. There was the Chicano movement, there was the Civil Rights movement, there was the American Indian movement. Who were they fighting against? Were they fighting each other? Who were they fighting against? They were fighting these folks here. And the only thing we have, there's not a single right. And I've challenged people. I've even offered people $1,000 if you can name me one single right, one that the white man has given people of color that we didn't have to fight them for. Because if you name me a right, I will name you a piece of legislation, a lawsuit. I will name you an act of civil disobedience that granted us that right or pushed that legislation. Because they gave us nothing. We fought for everything.
Yeah, I don't mean to minimize our fight, but ultimately that's what we've gotten, the white man's crumbs. All of these crumbs that we've ever gotten, we didn't really get them. We had to fight really hard to get them. And like you said, who did we have to fight for this? We as brown people have never had to fight Asians for it. We've never had to fight black people for it. We've never had to fight any other people but the common colonizer. Every people in this country, and this applies to the Americas, but I mean, if we're gonna just, narrow it down to the United States, fine. But every people that is not white in this country has had to fight those people. The sad part about it is that we as non-white people, we never try to fight to gain privileges and or be overly privileged over the white man. Our fights have been equality. Think about this.
It's crazy, but you're right, and that's what the saying goes: when you live a life of privilege, equality seems like oppression. When we fight, we're here. We're trying to fight to here, and they see that as, look, no, they're trying to push it down. They're trying. You said your Constitution says that all men are created equal, but you don't tell people that when you wrote that Constitution, not all men were considered men. Some were considered property. Others were considered savages. So you didn't include us, and this is what I try to get people to understand, especially our people. You know, people that were toasted on the comal. You are not in the Constitution. People of color are not in the Constitution. We are in the amendments to the Constitution. We were an afterthought. They made way for us, not because they wanted to, but out of necessity. They made way for us. They amended their Constitution to make way for us. We're not in the Constitution. We're in the amendments to the Constitution. And that.
The boys are cooking. But see, so am I, because I can see right now this is going exactly how I wanted it to. So just kind of going by feel, knowing that the more I fill in more lines, I'm going to be able to adjust the line weight accordingly. And we're going to get the result we want with this painting method. So I hate to say it, but I've essentially set myself up with a coloring book. I've traced it out. Now I'm doing line work, and I'm filling in just the different line weights. I'll take it. Sure will, goddammit. Because yeah, now that we're on here, and I might have to get like a pinstriping brush. This is working okay, but you know, my big thing is always like the lighting quality. There's also line quality that we got to look at, and this is not doing so bad really at all. It's just gonna have to be continually tweaked as I work on it. And as long as the boldest of the lines that I need to show definition are clear as a bell, then we really don't need a whole lot to make this convincing. And to keep it in a visual style that complements, well, the ultimate end goal, the look that we're going for. So we got to try to keep a steady hand while doing this. That is going to reduce the amount of cleanup I'm going to have to do. But yeah, you could say this is going pretty swimmingly. But yeah, he's doing good. It is now 12:30 a.m. Well, 12:20 a.m. And we've definitely got some good work in. So I think I'm at a point where I can be satisfied and start washing my brushes. Because, yeah, it definitely looks like this is going to turn out the way I intended. So, wish I had a better, more complete camera angle that I could get this. But you know, you get a idea of the progress. This is working very well now. And so now it's just a matter of how many man hours I can put into this and how quickly I can do it. Because, yeah, now I'm excited to see the rest. Son of a bitch! If only I did not have to work during the day. In any case, yeah, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. We've had plenty of random thoughts about the corruption of the current administration in the U.S. and the fuckery that it likes, and a little bit of thought process on the stripped indigenous identity that many of us deal with on a regular basis. Decolonization, I think, as a philosophy, I think is worthy of inspection. And if you haven't inspected it, I readily recommend that you spend some time at least exploring the concept of what it is. So, long and short, I'm starting to wind down. I am getting tired. My eyes are heavy. But I'm also excited about this ruckus right here. You see him? He gonna be mean. He gonna be clean. And the reason why I'm so excited is not necessarily because of the image. It's because I know now that there's a process that is going to work. And I'll be able to do any number of pictures like this. Just gonna have to make sure that I have everything lined up and ready to go. And yeah, composition, that's gonna be the key. In any case, well, I hope wherever you're at, if you're watching at all, I don't know if I have any watchers. I know people stopped by today, which I am very grateful for. But if you're in one of the occupied cities, whether that's Los Angeles, whether that's Minneapolis, that you're doing well, staying safe, doing as much to protect your neighbors as possible. And yeah, my thoughts are with you. If you've got anything that to say, if you want to reach out, got questions, suggestions, requests, anybody wants to make content together, combine resources, so to speak, I welcome it. Get in my messages, contact me, and we'll kick the idea around. But in any case, thanks to anyone who stopped in. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do. Just keep me alive over here. Anyway, you guys have a good night. I'll try to be on again ASAP.